UFC 319. We got it, folks. It's here. Let's just get into it. We got too many fights to belabor the point. UFC 319, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev takes place this Saturday, August 16th, 9 p.m. Central Time at the United Center in Chicago, the United States. The middleweight title's up for grabs for South Africa's own Dricus du Plessis. Tries to defend it against the surging fucking talent superstar Khamzat Chimaev, one of the biggest superstars in the sport right now. Pretty decent card they threw together for these guys. I think it's 12 fights. We'll take a look at the majority of them. We'll blow through a couple of them that we're not too interested in. Like the first one of the night, Karina Silva versus J.J. Aldrich. Who gives a shit? Pick the over. Brian Battle versus Nursultan Ruzboev. Real torn in this fight. Don't really know who to go with. I kind of lean a little bit towards Brian Battle, but I actually think Nursultan could take him early. Brian Battle, 30 years young, 12-2, 4 wins in a row. He had a no contest broken up in there. Big guy. Let's pull up his record here. Big guy, good striker. A little wild with it. It's got good kicks, front kicks, low kicks, good power. Gets a little sloppy with it at times. Exposes himself some. Gets a little reckless. He's going against a guy here, Nursultan Ruzboev, who's fucking huge. He's like 6'4", 6'5", rather. Cuts a shitload of weight. Keeps the hand cocked up there by the chin. Fire it straight down the middle. Decent power. Kind of a berserker and ends up fading. Also got wrestled into oblivion by old Joaquin Buckley. So, stronger guys with good wrestling, I think, can kind of take advantage of the weight cut Nursultan undertakes and his size, use it against him. I don't know that Brian Battle's going to do that. That's not really his cup of tea. I think he might go out there, do some berserker barrage, try and land big. I'll take Brian Battle straight up at minus 165. That's a gamble, though. Feel free to fade the shit out of that. Moving on. Edson Barboza versus Dricus. Another one I'm kind of torn on. Two crafty vets getting after it. Edson Barboza, pretty diverse, versatile striker. Throws a lot of crazy shit. Got good speed, wheel kicks, tons of experience, good jabs. Good kicks all over, not just necessarily the wheel kicks. Good kicks upstairs, downstairs. 24-12, 14 knockout wins. Obviously, the man's got the striking pedigree to hold his own in this fight. But Dricus, really 15-3, not bad. Got a decent amount of experience as well, just not the same amount as old Edson Barboza. And he's lost to some pretty good guys. Benil Dariush, Joel Alvarez. Seems like he struggles against the faster, higher-level strikers. Will he go out there and try to wrestle Edson Barboza? Maybe. Will Edson Barboza's takedown defense hold up? Double maybe? I don't know, dude. I'll lean towards Edson on this one. What's the odds? Minus 155? Apparently, I'm not the only one leaning toward Edson. Let's go. That's it for the early prelims. Moving on to the regular prelims, which start, I believe, at 7 Central Time. We have the Dream, old Chase Hooper, versus Alexander Hernandez. Let's look at these stats here. Old Chase Hooper, 25 years old, 16-3. Jiu-jitsu specialist. Obviously, he's got the 8 submission wins there. 4 by knockout, though. Actually starting to develop a striking game, which he was lacking in for quite some time, getting exposed a little bit out there. He's starting to develop some chops. Almost has like a Wonder Boy-esque style with like the side kicks, front kicks to the body. Has like the question mark kick come over the top. Nice jab, a little bit wild with the overhook. Sometimes he kind of ducks and throws the big overhook, but great jiu-jitsu, okay wrestling. Pretty well-rounded guy. He's coming along there. Still young talent, so he's got time to develop. Going against a young, cocky kind of douchebag in Alexander Hernandez, 32 years old, so not quite as young as Chase Hooper, but he still has time. 16-8, 6 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, 8 by decision. Was a pretty big touted talent when he first hit the scene. Talked a lot of shit to the wrong people and ended up getting dusted for it. Old Cowboy put one on him pretty good back in the day. Since then, humbled a little bit, but still kind of seems to have that same arrogance. Okay fighter, good pepper in the jab, throwing low kicks and shit from the outside. Not the greatest chin on earth. Seems to be starting to crack a little bit on him. The short, compact, explosive build, I think it's going to be hard for Chase Hooper to control and submit, but I could potentially see it. Maybe getting like a body triangle, locking something in, maybe working his way to the back, getting an RNC or head and arm or something like that. So I'm going to go with Chase Hooper. As long as Alexander Hernandez doesn't manage to stay away, pepper on the outside, pump the jab, and shit like that, we're going to go with old Chase on this one. The Hoop, plus he's a cool guy. Next up, Jessica Andrade versus Lupi Godinez. Front scrap here. I'm a fan of both girls. We're big fans of Lupi Godinez in this house. She's been very, very active, particularly, I mean, really for any fighter, but for her caliber and the amount of wins she's stacking up, you usually start to see people kind of pump the brakes a little bit, come off the gas, and slow it down, and she seems to be staying pretty steady. So it's awesome to see a young, active fighter getting after it, making some money while they have the opportunity. Jessica Andrade, former champ, compact, explosive, big striker, big power, slammed the ever-loving piss out of Rose Namajunas on her head. Struggles a little bit in the grappling department. She's got a good hook to the body, hook upstairs. It kind of reminds me of like a female Wanderlei Silva. Decent amount of experience as well. Obviously 40 fights for her age. I mean, she's only 33 years old, like I mentioned there. 40 fights is pretty freaking good. Orthodox, like I mentioned, lead left, hook to the body head, pretty solid. Not the greatest defense. She gets peppered a little bit with the jab, which Lupi does throw quite a bit. And again, like I mentioned, the grappling she struggles with. I don't know that Lupi's going to be doing much grappling with her. I'd like to see her do that early to maybe gas Andrade out, work some blood into her arms, get them tired, take some of the power out of them. Excuse me, and then maybe stand with her so she doesn't get cracked and hurt. But Lupi here, we'll pull up her stats. She's 31 years old, 13-5, coming off a decision win over, I think it was Julia Pilastri. Yeah, back in March, Julia Pilastri. A couple losses in a row there prior to that, and then some wins, one loss, wins, a loss, back and forth. Bit of a decision machine. You could maybe take the over in this fight. Jessica Andrade, Lupi, over 2.5, minus 350. Let's just rack them up. So we got a parlay going here. 4-piece. You could slap that one if you wanted, but take the over. I think Lupi's going to try and stay away from Andrade, pepper up with the jab. She may get caught. Andrade has some decent power. Lupi's never been knocked out, though, so I'd like to think that her chin's going to hold up. She does get cracked in some of her fights, though, so we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But for the record, we're going with Lupi. Moving on, GM3, Gerald Meerschaert, the man himself, the man with the mustache, versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Two vets getting after it. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, a little bit younger than Gerald Meerschaert, but he's got a decent amount of fights under his belt. 37-19 GM3, 37 years old, coming off 2 losses in a row. It was a decision to Brad Tavares, who has decent power, so it's good to see him staying there for a decision. And then an arm triangle to Reinier de Ridder before that, which, seeing a jiu-jitsu whiz like old Meerschaert getting subbed, you're like, damn, okay. RDR's no punk, but GM3's kind of a basic guy, not like particularly like stand out in any kind of physicality aspects. Of course, favors the jiu-jitsu, but even that I would say is not like super stellar. I think he's kind of sneaky and he has some unorthodox shit that he catches dudes with, kind of some craftiness to his game. But dudes who really seem to know what they're doing, for example, Brad Tavares, Reinier de Ridder, are able to hold their own, if not beat him in that department. Southpaw, a bit of an open guard. He gets caught and he's a little bit slow and reactive. The chin seems to be starting to fade as well. Going against the guy, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who is pretty quick with the hands, has some decent pop as well. I actually think Oleksiejczuk can probably catch Gerald Meerschaert here. The question is, can he stay on his feet long enough to get it done? GM3 is probably going to go out there and shoot a takedown. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk has struggled in the grappling multiple times and been submitted multiple times. GM3 by sub might be worth a sprinkle, honestly. I think the under here is probably the move as well. As a matter of fact, we'll probably just do that. We'll take Oleksiejczuk out. We'll play the under. Once we see the odds, though, if they're crazy lopsided, GM3 by sub might be the move, and then hedge it out with Oleksiejczuk by KO or something along those lines. I take Oleksiejczuk, I guess. Younger guy, a little less mileage on him, a little faster, better hands. Maybe he'll get it done. Moving on. Bobby King Green versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Oh, Bobby Green, King Green, whatever his fucking name is today. 38 years old. He's 32-17, so quite a bit of experience. Been around the block once or twice or 100 times. Pretty unorthodox fighter. Kind of some unconventional things he does stylistically. Keeps the hands pretty low. Likes to slip, work the head movement, things like that. And he's pretty good at it. It just also leads to him getting caught. And as he's gotten older and been in some wars and some shootouts and stuff, it seems like the chin is now starting to fail him a little bit. So now he's getting caught and getting put to sleep. But he's quick. He's got a good jab, good kicks, good low kicks, good knee stomp, which is pretty nasty. The jab's real good. When he throws, he does lead with his face a little bit, though, which in turn also leads to him getting caught. Going against a guy here, Carlos Diego Vieira, who has good power as well. Both these guys experienced vets, 38 versus 40 years old, so it's not like there's really enough of an age difference to be much of a consideration here. 19-6, Carlos Diego Vieira, so not the same level of MMA experience as Bobby King Green, but he kind of made his name in the jiu-jitsu world while Bobby Green was already fighting, so just different avenues, different paths. 19-6, 5 knockouts, 7 submissions, 7 decisions, which with the jiu-jitsu background that Diego Vieira has, you would think maybe he would have more submissions and less of the knockouts. So for that reason, I actually think I'm going to pick Carlos Diego. I think he can catch Bobby Green. I think Bobby Green gets a little reckless. Now, this isn't going to be a clean fight. Carlos is probably going to get popped as well. So it's a matter of whether or not his chin's going to hold up and whether he can land his own big shots. For the money, though, I think it's worth it. Minus 155. I'll take Diego Vieira. Could be wrong here. I just think power, chin, both of those go in favor of Diego Vieira. Speed probably goes in favor of King Green, but the jiu-jitsu also goes in favor of Diego Vieira, so we're going to go with it. Next up, first fight of the night on the main card. Fun scrap here. A bit of a weird one, a bit of an interesting matchup. Kai Asakura makes his splash on the scene, comes over from ONE FC, huge following. I think it was, or no, actually it might have been Ryzen. Comes over from the Asian circuit, though. Huge following overseas, so he actually comes into an immediate title shot against Alexander Pantoja, which is kind of wild. Ryzen. Immediate title shot, which you never see, really, from other organizations. Does okay against Pantoja. Has a couple moments where he lands 1 or 2 shots, but then proceeds to get taken down and kind of, I don't want to say ragdolled, but he does get run through a little bit. Pantoja ends up submitting him. We actually took Pantoja by submission in that fight, made a little bit of money. Experienced guy, though, 21-5. He's got 26 fights. Good striker, very fast, explosive, willing to engage almost to a fault, maybe. He's a bit reckless at times. But young dude, 31, extremely explosive. I think his willingness to engage is going to be one of his biggest attributes. It doesn't seem like he's afraid of anything, again, maybe to a fault, but at least he's going out there and engaging, making shit happen, which in this sport, that's something you got to be willing to do. Going against a guy in Tim Elliott, very unorthodox. Tim Elliott, 38 years old, a little bit older. Hasn't fought in a minute. Been a little less active than he was perhaps at one point in his career. Going through some shit in his life, though, unfortunately. Very experienced, 20-13. Not the cleanest record. 5 wins by KO, 7 by submission, 10 by decision. Like I mentioned, though, very unorthodox fighter, very unconventional, almost like a Dom Cruz-esque in a way, but not quite. Just like with the movement and the back and forth and the switching stances, the feints, and the way he throws some of his shots. I don't think he has like necessarily the fight IQ and the level that Dominic Cruz does. I'm just saying some of the movements remind me of that. Decent grappler, though. He's got good scrambles. I think that's probably going to be the move here for him, is going to be to try and take Kai Asakura down. Now, whether or not he can control him on the ground and keep him there is another thing entirely. This one you could probably take a Kai by KO or maybe inside the distance and then take Tim Elliott by submission. Just for the odds there, the plus 850 odds, I think it's worth a tiny sprinkle. And we're talking a tiny sprinkle here. I'd put like a fifth of a unit or something like that on Elliott by sub. That's a hole in Kai Asakura's game, and it's always going to be a hole in his game unless he really spends some tremendous time like trying to shore up that defense. I just don't think there's been enough time between this and the Pantoja fight that he's going to make any kind of meaningful gains in that department. And for that reason, I think Tim Elliott could potentially get him, expose him, submit his ass, maybe with the guillotine, jump a guillotine, maybe even like an RNC again. But yeah, I could see it happening. Moving on, Jared Cannonier versus MVP. One of the more fun fights of the night. One of the ones I'm looking forward to most. I like both these guys quite a bit. We've been a Jared Cannonier fan for quite a while. The Killer Gorilla switched divisions a couple times. Used to be heavyweight, light heavyweight, bounced around. But both these guys getting a little bit up there. You got 41-year-old Jared Cannonier versus 38-year-old MVP. Cannonier is kind of a measured, composed, low-volume fighter. Real selective with his shots. Tremendous power, great low kicks, good long reach, though. He's pretty good at fighting fairly long as well. Kind of like an open bladed stance somewhat. Got the rear hand cocked for the big shot and kind of the front hand pawing and measuring distance, hand fighting. Decent grappling, not like standout submissions or anything like that. but he's got good wrestling, able to get to his feet very well, and good submission defense, maybe more than anything. Going against a guy in MVP, maybe the most unconventional striker of all time MVPs, 23-3, so pretty comparable experience here. They actually have the same amount of fights, just in a different composition of the record. MVP actually has the better record than Jared Cannonier, but Jared Cannonier has been fighting arguably the higher level of competition. MVP though, karate fighter, used to actually literally do karate and kickboxing. Sideways stance, almost like a point fighting style, very lungy, stabbing shots, stabbing straights, comes in with the hook, crazy kicks, elbows, just very, very unconventional fighter. I can't stress that enough. The grappling leaves a little bit to be desired. He's been taken down a couple times, but he's not going out there and getting submitted by guys. Actually, him and Cannonier are kind of similar in that regard. It's like they can be taken down, but both of them are hard to control on the ground. Both of them know how to get back to their feet and stay safe while doing so. So very similar in that regards, just their striking game. They go about it in a pretty different manner. I think MVP, unfortunately, is probably going to chew Cannonier up pretty well in this fight. Cannonier is going to be throwing some leg kicks, going low, and then trying to land upstairs. I just don't know that he's fast enough. Has mileage, unfortunately. He's been in some real wars that MVP has not been in. I think MVP hasn't really lost much of a step yet, so I see him chewing Jared Cannonier up. I could see it being a decision, even money. You could take that there if you really wanted to, or you could just play it safe, go with the money line. MVP probably peppers Cannonier, stays away, chews him up, gets the dub. Moving on, third from the top, we have Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates, Fighting Nerds own. Another really fun fight. Geoff Neal, 34 years old, to Carlos Prates is 31 years old. Pretty comparable experience between the two. Geoff Neal's been fighting the cream of the crop in this division for a hot minute now in the UFC. Pretty well-rounded fighter. Hands of Steel is a pretty fitting nickname. The guy's got fucking solid power. 10 knockouts, obviously. That should say something right there. Coming off TKO win over Rafael dos Anjos, where he was landing some pretty big shots, and I don't even really remember him landing much on the knee, and then out of nowhere, he landed, actually, I think, again, a shot upstairs, and then RDA just dropped holding his knee. It was very confusing. I think they did confirm he did have a knee injury. It was just like, almost like he was looking for a way out. He's like, oh, fuck, my knee, I'm out. But I don't think that is actually what happened. It just was strange to me at the time. But Geoff Neal's pretty technical fighter. He's got real good boxing. This pouch out here. Good boxing, good power, good anti-wrestling, or I guess wrestling, just, keeping it in the departments that he wants. Again, kind of similar to Jared Cannonier, just a weight class smaller. One of these dudes who has been the underdog quite a few times going into these bigger name fights against like Shavkat and stuff like that, and then ends up holding his own and surprising quite a few people. Now, he lost the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, but I don't think people expected the war that he gave Shavkat in the meantime. Like, they beat the fuck out of each other. He's going against a guy here, one of the Fighting Nerds, Carlos Prates. Kickboxing background, everybody knows because he like smokes cigarettes and drinks and does all this shit, and then still comes in there and just absolutely obliterates people. Long, kind of lanky, rangy fighter, very slick with his striking, very high level striker, almost like like an Adesanya when he first hits the scene or something. Kind of reminds me of those, not stylistically the same, but like the waves he makes in the division where people are just like, holy shit, this guy's a next level. Good whipping power into his strikes, good speed. He's kind of a springy southpaw, likes to make reads early in the fight. Not necessarily a super slow starter, but he is filling things out in the fight, making his reads and stuff. Not the greatest takedown defense. I think Geoff Neal could actually expose him a little bit there in this fight. Maybe just take him down and kind of wear on his arms, take some of the power away from him if he chose to. I think people are overlooking old Geoff Neal a little bit in this one. Hands of Steel at plus 210. I'll take him. I think he could potentially get it done here. Now, does he? I don't know. You could probably hedge this one out if you wanted to. Take Carlos Prates by KO or something early. Maybe even like a round 1 KO or something like that. But Geoff Neal's got a good chin. He doesn't generally make big, blaring mistakes, and it seems like these types of fights are the ones that he likes, where he's getting slept on a little bit. People are overlooking him. So, yeah, for the odds, largely this is a value play. I'm going to go for it. Just maybe a half a unit or something. Don't go hard. Maybe even like a third of a unit, because it's a bit of a stretch, but I think the value's there. Next, maybe one of the biggest question marks of the evening, probably the second biggest question mark of the evening. The co-main event, Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico in his debut in the UFC, which is kind of fucking wild. But Lerone Murphy, 16-0, undefeated, 34 years old. He's got 7 knockout wins, 9 by decision, so more decisions than knockouts. Bit of a decision machine. Been on a tear lately, though. Fighting the cream of the crop in the division, Dan Ige, Josh Emmett, Edson Barboza, Joshua Kulabau. We had quite a drop-off there in competition, but those top 3 names are pretty solid. Pretty technical, well-rounded fighter. He's one of these dudes, if you're playing on him in EA UFC, he's got like a 80 and everything at least. Long stance, measured fighter. He's very well-rounded, kind of slow moving forward style. He's not like springing forward and jumping all over the place. A little susceptible to the low kick. Dan Ige was able to capitalize on him some there. One of the things I noticed, he has got good movement in and out, both in and out and laterally. Very good movement. Bit of a high guard, so I think the body might be exposed a little bit against old Aaron Pico. That's not necessarily something you want to be having going on in his wrestling. If I remember right, Dan Ige was able to take him down a couple times, which again, against Aaron Pico, as long as he comes in here composed and doesn't have the UFC jitters, those are things that he will be able to capitalize on. Decent work in the clinch, though. Good with the elbows, good with the knees. Decent striker as well. I think the level of competition leans in favor of Lerone Murphy. It's just the holes in his game are things that Aaron Pico are actually pretty strong at and could capitalize on. But 13-4, got quite a few losses against not nearly the level of competition that Lerone Murphy has been fighting. So that should be a big uh-oh kind of sign to you. But 28 years young, still plenty of time to develop. 6 years difference between the two. Kid's been at it for forever. Of course, he has the crazy wrestling credentials. Been boxing since forever. Undeniable, crazy power. Super fast. Explosive as all hell. Fight IQ leaves a lot to be desired, though. But if ever you were going to be at a camp that was going to be able to work on that, Jackson Wink is probably the camp. I think they can work on that. So this fight to me is a question of a couple things. The weight. We want to see how these guys make weight. I want to see how Aaron Pico does under the UFC lights. He's been fighting on a big stage, but there is no stage like the UFC stage. So curious to see how he holds up there. And then I'm curious to see once he gets in there what kind of fight IQ he has, how well he stays composed. Currently, for the value, I think this is effectively a toss-up fight. I think Lerone Murphy is the way to go simply for the value. Would not surprise me at all, though, to see Aaron Pico rip one to the body with Lerone Murphy having that higher guard, or even taking him down repeatedly and working his way to a decision victory. So I'll say Aaron Pico, KO, Lerone Murphy decision. Take that hedge, half a unit either way, you're good to go. Come out ahead. And if I had to pick one straight up, I guess Lerone Murphy. I don't know. Fuck it. All right. Main event of the evening. The middleweight title up for grab. As I mentioned earlier in the night, we have South Africa's own Dricus du Plessis, 23-2 against the absolute berserker Khamzat Chimaev, 14-0, undefeated. Dricus, young buck, 31 years old, still plenty of time to stick around and hold on to that title and rack up some defenses. It's just a huge test here. 23-2, he's got 9 wins by knockout, 11 by submission, 3 decisions, 1 KO loss and 1 submission loss to his name. So he's kind of a do-or-die fighter. He's going out there and either he's getting it done or he's getting finished in turn. Coming off several really good wins in a row. Obviously, the 2 over Strickland, the sub over Izzy. Both of them have a submission. Both of them have a submission in form of a face crank. One over, or former champions too. One over Izzy, and then of course Khamzat's over Robert Whittaker. Dricus is a super unconventional fighter, though. Comes from a judo wrestling background, so he actually has that as his base. Then he kickboxed for quite a while, has a kickboxing record that's actually pretty fucking legit as well. It's kind of a side karate style. Throws just wild fucking punches, though. At 1 minute, he's throwing real good jab, 1-2s, real good like question mark kicks and high round kicks and shit like that. And then the next thing, he's tripping over his feet, throwing giant overhands and shit like that, which I think in some ways that works in his favor. That unpredictable factor is hard to train for, and it's hard to adapt to during a fight because you just don't know what the fuck is getting thrown at you, because it's everything's getting thrown at you, including the fucking kitchen sink. So Dricus middleweight champ, defending his belt against Khamzat. Khamzat, crazy wrestler, great power. Was fighting in 2 weights at one point in time and then started having trouble making welterweight. Well, he's also had trouble making middleweight, but moved up to middleweight and stayed there. He's had some health issues, not been the most active fighter, but when he does fight, it's a fucking tornado in there. All offense, just a berserker, just blitzkrieg style. Him and Kamaru went to a war. Him and Gilbert Burns went to a war, which was surprising. Yeah, there was a point in time where he was just walking through people and hit a couple bumps in the road, but still managed to handle both of those guys pretty handedly, and showed that he can stay in there for drawn-out exchanges and not crack immediately when his pressure doesn't immediately get him the win. He shows that he's able to stay in there, withstand a little return fire, and then come back, stay composed, and get the W, which I think is good. That's championship merit there. Now, how will he do in a 5-round drawn-out fight? Both of those were 3-rounders, if I recall correctly. And both of them, especially the Kamaru one, you kind of saw Kamaru starting to come back into that fight a little bit. I think Khamzat, while fresh, is probably going to have the edge in the wrestling. It's hard for anybody to have any kind of edge against Khamzat in the wrestling department. Striking, Khamzat's probably going to have the speed and power advantage again while fresh. How long that will last, though, is hard to say. Will he go out there and shoot his wad and Dricus survives and then proceeds to turn it on him? It's very possible. I just don't know, man. I could see Khamzat actually getting this one done early, unfortunately. I would like to see Dricus hold on to the title. I think Dricus is going to surprise Khamzat a little bit with his power. Man, go Khamzat round 1 and round 2, and then Dricus round 3, 4, 5. Do like half units on each. I don't know, things crashing here. There. You could always do method of victory. Do Khamzat inside the distance, Dricus inside the distance. Do the under 2.5. Something like that. This is going to be fucking pandemonium, though. Both these guys get after it. Both of them are finishers. Both of them are aggressive. I just don't see this one going the distance. I could be wrong. The gas tank doesn't support it. The under 2.5, honestly, is probably just a fine play in this one. So, yeah, if I have to pick a guy, I guess I'm picking Khamzat. The minus 180 is probably, honestly, about right. For a champ to be that big of an underdog tells you something. Khamzat's a fucking monster. He's probably going to win. I'd like to see Dricus get it done. Don't be surprised if he does. Again, I could see it going late and swinging back into his favor. But, yeah, this is going to be rough. This is going to be rough early. But that's it. UFC 319 in the books. Picked you out some bets there. Quite a bit of action to have on this card when you got big names and guys that you're pretty familiar with their records and stuff. You can kind of pick some fights a little bit better. So good luck to everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, throw me a follow, do all the good shits, help a brother out, and good luck this weekend. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.